Okay, in this video we're going to multiply some fractions. We're going to multiply the numerators, then we're going to multiply the denominators, and then we're going to change any improper fractions that we ended up with to a mixed number, and if we need to, we'll simplify. And number 3 and number 4 are not going to have to be done every time. Just whenever we have improper fractions, that's when we'll do number 3, and if we need to, we'll have to simplify. But remember, 1 and 2 you always have to do. Not very hard. Here we go. 5 times 2, that's my numerator, that's my numerator. So I'm going to multiply my numerator. So 5 times 2 is going to give me 10, and then I'm going to multiply the denominators. 8 times 3, and 8 times 3 is 24. Now I don't have an improper fraction because the top number is not bigger than the bottom number. Okay, this is not an improper fraction. This is called a proper fraction when the numerator is smaller than the denominator. So I don't have to do number 3, I don't have to do step 3 in this case, but I do have to simplify because I already know that 10 and 24 are both even numbers, and because they're even numbers I have to divide at least by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and try that, see what happens. When I divide by 2, 10 divided by 2 is going to give me 5, and 24 divided by 2 is going to give me 12. And that's my final answer. Okay, that's my simplified answer. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now let's look at another couple of examples to make sure you got the concept. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply these two numbers on the top, my two numerators. 3 times 1 is going to give me 3, and then multiply my two denominators. 5 times 4 is going to give me 20. This is not an improper fraction, so again I don't have to do step 3, and in this case I don't even have to simplify. I can also skip step 4. I'm done because 3 is a prime number and it cannot be reduced anymore. So that's how easy these problems are going to be. Okay, let's get to a little bit more complicated ones. Let's look at this one, for example. Okay, so let's look at this one now. 5 times 4 is going to give me 20, and 6 times 5 is going to give me 30. Now both of these end in a 0, which means I can simplify by dividing each one of these by 10. If I divide the numerator by 10, 20 divided by 10 is 2, and 30 divided by 10 is 3. Okay, the shortcut that I'm going to talk to you about right now, you can use it in class if you know it, is anytime you're dividing a fraction that has a number on the top and a number on the bottom that includes a 0 on each number, you can cancel out a 0 from the bottom with a 0 from the top. Okay, so in this case, if we were to cross out those two zeros right there, then my answer would be 2/3. So if I knew this shortcut before I did this simplification right here, then I didn't have to go through and show that I divide by 10. I just had to cross out these zeros, and that would be my work showing that I'm reducing my fraction. Okay, so really what you really are doing is the same thing, except that this top way of doing it, that's the proper way. This down here, that's the shortcut. As long as you know what it means, I don't have a problem with you using either one. So if you feel more comfortable with showing the actual division by 10, go for it. If you're a little bit lazy and you want to go for the shortcut, then go ahead and just cross out those zeros. But you have to be careful when you cross out zeros. If you have an example that looks like this, 20 divided by 3.0, these two zeros are not the same. This one and this one you cannot cross out. Okay, you cannot do that. The shortcut will not work here. The zeros have to be in front of the decimal. Okay, for example, this right here, you can cross out that 0 and that 0, and your answer will be 2 out of 30 because both zeros are in front of the decimal. Okay, so make sure you understand that they both are whole numbers. In this case, that 0 was not part of the whole number. That was just a placeholder. That's why we cannot do the shortcut there. But if you don't understand it, don't worry about it. Just ignore the last thing I said, and then you can just do it this way that I have shown right here. Okay? And this is my final answer, 2/3. Now the next one, it says 2/3 times 4/5. We're going to go through the same process. 2 times 4 is 8, and 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, and this one is already all the way down, reduced all the way down, and I'm going to show you why before I circle it. The multiples of 8, the only way you can get 8 is if you multiply 1 times 8, or if you multiply 2 times 4. That's it. That's the only number that you can divide 8 by and end up with an even answer with no remainder. And if you look at the 15, the only way you can get 15 is if you multiply 1 times 15 or 3 times 5. Notice that we have no numbers in common other than 1. That means that it's already reduced all the way down. That's how you check to see if the fraction is all the way reduced. List your multiples of each one, not your multiples, your factors of each one of your numbers, the numerator and the denominator. And if you have nothing else in common but just the 1, that means that you have simplified that fraction all the way down to its lowest term, which is what you want your answer to be in every time. Okay, so now let's look at this application problem where Jacob goes and buys video games. So Jacob has 36 video games. He bought 3/4 of his games on the internet. Of the games he bought on the internet, 1/6 are action games. What fractional part of Jacob's games are action games? Well, here's the first thing you need to notice. There's a keyword in this problem, and that keyword is of. And I want you to remember that this keyword of means you have to multiply. And what are you going to multiply? Well, you're going to multiply both numbers that are on either side of this word of. For example, one of those numbers is 3/4. So I already know I have to multiply 3/4 times something. Let's see what that something is. It says he bought 3/4 of his games on the internet. Well, how many games does he have? He has 36 video games, right? That's the number, that's this number right here. His games, that's the number of 36. Those two, they're the same thing. So really, instead of doing that arrow right there, I can just say that his games is 36 games. So I'm going to multiply 3/4 times 36. Okay? Now here's something that you haven't seen yet in these notes. And that's when you multiply a fraction times a whole number. Okay? Let me ask you a question. What is 2 divided by 1? 2, right? What is 5 divided by 1? 5. Okay? Good job. And what is 7 divided by 1? 7. Yep, I knew you knew that one. Well, let's see. If it's 36, can I say 36 divided by 1 is the same thing as 36? Yeah, I can. And this is actually a property of mathematics. Any number, any whole number divided by 1 is the same number, has the same value. Okay? So in this case, I want to change this whole number to an improper fraction by placing it over 1. In other words, by dividing it by 1. And if I write it this way, it has the same value. It did not change the value of that 36. That's the reason why I can do this. Okay, because I'm not changing the number, I'm not changing the value, I'm just dividing it by 1. Alright, so why do I want to do this? Well, if I do this, look at what I end up with. A fraction on this side and a fraction on this side. Now all I have to do is follow my simple steps of multiplying the numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. So 4 times 1, that's the easy one. I'm just going to do 4. And 3 times 36. If you don't know that out of the top of your head, then work it out over here on the side. Okay? So 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. And 3 times 3 is 9. Plus the 1 that we carried is 10. So it's 108. Now this is an improper fraction. So because this is an improper fraction, I need to go ahead and do step number 3. And let's go back and review what step number 3 was. Step number 3 was to convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. And we do that by dividing. So write yourself a note on step number 3 that says you change the improper fractions to mixed numbers by doing a division. Okay? So if we go back to where we were, I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide the same way I used to divide when I was changing a fraction to a decimal. I'm going to do a top in, bottom out. Okay. That means that the top number, my numerator, is going to become my dividend, and my denominator is going to become my divisor. So when I have my division set up this way, it's really easy to go on and finish it because I know that 4 cannot go into 1, so I'm going to put a 0 on top of the 1. But 4 does go into 10 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8, and when I subtract, 10 minus 8 gives me 2. Now when I bring down the 8, I have 28. So 4 goes into 28 7 times, and 4 times 7 is 28, and I get a remainder of 0. So what this means here is that out of the 3/4 of his games, out of 36 games, 3/4 were bought on the internet. Well, this games, this 27 that we came up with, that's how many games that were bought and now we're not finished yet because that's not the question they asked us. The question they asked us, and you have to be very careful with these kind of questions because this is the kind of questions you're going to have when you start test. The question was what fractional part of Jacob's games are action games? They didn't ask us how many were bought on the internet. They asked us how many are action games. Well, if we continue reading the problem from right here and after, it tells us that of the games that he bought on the internet, 1/6 are action games. Okay, and there's a keyword again, if you didn't notice it, of. That means we have to multiply. So of the games that he bought on the internet, we know now that he bought 27 games on the internet. So I know that's going to be one of the numbers that I'm going to have to multiply. And it tells me that 1/6 are action games. So I have to multiply 27 times 1/6. I'm going to use the same property that I showed you right here, where I showed you that any whole number divided by 1 is the same whole number. I'm going to do the same thing that I did over here on the 36. And I'm going to put the 27 over 1. 27 divided by 1 times 1 divided by 6. Or 27 over 1 times 1/6. So now what I have to do is multiply the numerators, and that gives me 27. And multiply the denominators, and that gives me 6. Again, this is an improper fraction, so I cannot leave it this way. So what I have to do is top in, bottom out. I have to divide. Top number is 27, bottom number is 6. 6 cannot go into 2, but 6 does go into 27 4 times. I know 6 times 4 is 24, so my remainder is 3. Okay, now that I have this answer, my answer is going to be 4. My quotient is my whole number, and 3 is my numerator, and 6 is my denominator. So make sure you understand where I got those numbers from. There's my whole number. This right here, that's this number right there. This 6 right here, that's how you come up with your mixed number. Now be careful here because 3 over 6, that can be reduced, that can be simplified. 3 will go into 3 and 3 will go into 6 as well. So when I say 3 divided by 3, it's going to give me a 1, and 6 divided by 3 is going to give me a 2. Then I have to bring down my whole number over to my answer. So my final answer is 4.5. Hold on, let me not box that in, because this is 4.5 games that are action. These are 4.5 action games. Out of the 27 he bought on the internet, 4.5 were action games. Now you cannot have half a game, can you? I don't think you can play half a CD. If you put half a CD inside your Xbox or your PlayStation, the PlayStation is probably going to break. So I cannot use this 1/2 a game. So my final answer is 4 action. So again, it's not just about the math. It has to make sense. Your answer has to make sense uh, according to what you're talking about, and it has to answer the question that you were being asked. So in this case, they asked us for action games. Now we know it's only 4 action games. Okay, so 27 were bought on the internet, but only 4 of those were action games. And he still has 36 games. He probably bought the other ones at GameStop or somewhere else. They were not bought in the internet, and they're probably not action games. So